You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And look, you know where to go if you need more leads and deals online for your real estate investing business. You go to AdWordsNerds.com, you go ahead and request a call with our team. They will help you put together a strategy for your market for free. So let's jump straight to our guest this week. I have been really excited for this interview for quite a while. I'm talking to Jason Medley. Now, if you don't know Jason, he is the leader over at the Collective Genius, which is, for my money, probably the best mastermind I have ever been to. Certainly the preeminent mastermind in the real estate investing space. They are working with some of the best real estate investors in the world. And what Jason is truly world class at is, I think, really, besides being a wonderful investor himself, these two things, right? One, he is a connector extraordinaire. The way that he thinks about building relationships and cultivating a network over time is incredibly powerful. And I'm really excited for you to hear him talk about that. And Jason is truly world-class at creating culture, because you can imagine if you get a lot of high-powered real estate investors in a room, it would be easy for that culture to not be super fun. And instead, Jason has cultivated this really amazing group of people that are there to help each other learn, help each other grow, challenge each other when it's necessary. I got to tell you, I am, a member of Collective Genius myself. I get a ton out of it. So just being above board about my connection there. But even more than that, I really wanted to sit down with Jason and pick his brain about how he's built the company that he's built. So without any further ado, let's get into my interview with Jason Medley from the Collective Genius.
All right, everybody, what's up? This is Daniel Barrett, and I'm here with Jason Medley from Collective Genius. And learn more about CG.com. Jason, welcome to the show, man. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, sir. I'm looking forward to chatting with you a little bit today, and hopefully we can cover up on some things that bring some value to your listeners.
Yeah, man. Well, there's a million things I want to ask you about. I always joke that this podcast is just a secret excuse for me to ask questions of really smart people, stuff that I want to know. So I've got a bunch of questions, and I was saying that there are very few people I know in real estate investing who really have their finger on the pulse of the industry, what other investors are thinking more than you. So so many things to dive into. I want to start just with you for people who don't know Collective Genius. So you run this mastermind, Collective Genius. I think it's fairly safe to say the kind of preeminent mastermind in the real estate investing space. For people that don't know what CG is, give them the kind of elevator pitch for what the group is all about.
Sure. CG is effectively a community, if you will, of high caliber real estate investors that are looking to become the visionary leaders that scale their business, scale their wealth, and then give back, right? It's not just all about the accumulation of assets, but in the end, helping other people, right? And so we have two different groups, if you will. And the thing I would tell you too, Dan, is that we are, just to give everyone some framework, not necessarily to be a pat on the back with us, but we're kind of the original gangsters in this space, right? Like we started 12 years ago before anybody could even spell mastermind. So the industry has taken off. Needless to say, there's quite a few people in our space now, but I do think we are the preeminent organization out there. And the reason is because our members are typically the preeminent investors in their local markets, right? And so a lot of that has to do with the caliber of people that we bring together. But long and short, we're a community. We come together 4 times a year at our premier level and 3 times a year at our select level. And it's almost like having a board of advisors, right? Everybody comes, they give a system, share, a resource, and then they ask for what they need help with, right? Whatever goals they're trying to accomplish. And then we match them strategically with other people in the group that have already been where they're at and where they're trying to go. And because we're a community, and go giving is one of our core values. Those individuals help get to the next level. And so you've got the information component, but then there's also the deal flow component. Our members are buying houses, selling houses, lending money, borrowing money, doing syndications together, starting businesses together, you name it. There's literally $1 billion plus of transactions that take place inside of Collective Genius. Gentleman texting me a moment ago, Mark Delatour. He's probably sold 150 plus houses to the members of our organization this year alone, right? And so we have a Facebook group where our members are on daily. But one of the things that I think that really separates us is that we provide Mastermind and a community for every core member of the investors team. So acquisitions, dispositions, their construction managers, their COOs, you name it. Every member of their core team, we provide community and a mastermind for. So their team on a monthly basis virtually can come together and help each other improve and help each other implement the things that we're actually talking about in physical meetings. And so kind of a recap too, some folks might want to know what the difference is. Our premier group is typically someone who is flipping 100 or more houses a year, or if you're in the multifamily space, you're buying 500 to 1,000 plus doors a year on an annual basis. Most of our members have significant portfolios of 100 doors or more. And then our premier level or our select level is, probably a little bit less experienced investor, but someone who's doing maybe 25 to 100 flips a year and probably has typically been in the game a little less long, if you will, than our premier level organization. So our goal on the select level is help to turn them from simply flipping houses to running a house flipping business, if you will, where they have core values, mission, vision. They've got KPIs, they're measuring their numbers. They can hold their team accountable. They get a team that's firing on all cylinders. And when they get to that point, then they're typically, running a multiple 7-figure business, which graduates them into premier.
Yeah. Having been in CG for a while now, one of the things that really impresses me about what you guys do is there's a lot of masterminds. Like there's a million masterminds now. It's like you said, it's a very popular model now. I know it wasn't when you started, but it's like, even for me, like I'm in the agency space, right? A marketing space. There's a million masterminds. I've been to a bunch. And I think Collective Genius is far and away of any of them I've ever been to, the best run and the most helpful. And the thing that really makes it that way is one, kind of you mentioned, every member is giving at every single time they come together, right? So you are getting not just, hey, there's like 3 speakers this week or whatever. You are getting every single person, each of whom is a successful entrepreneur, real estate investor, bringing their A game. So that's amazing. And then you guys have done this really amazing job of digging into what are all the pain points of real people doing this business model. Like, where are they running into trouble? Let's provide assets. Let's provide resources. Let's provide training. Let's provide support. Everything that you could run into. Even for me, like, I don't invest in real estate, right? Like I work in real estate investing, but when I go to CG, I come back with like 500 pages of notes on like operations and leadership and logistics. I mean, it's really an amazing.
Yeah, it's not just practical, tactical stuff. I mean, typically day 3 of our mastermind is we bring in, very high level keynote speakers, we've had anybody from Jocko Willink from a leadership perspective to Chris Voss from a negotiations perspective to, just 2 weeks ago in Scottsdale, we had Jeff Hoffman, who's one of the founders of Priceline, talking about sales, marketing, and branding in challenging economic times. I think one of the key things that you said, Dan, which is critical, is the real issues that investors are dealing with. And the reality of it is right now, investors are dealing with real issues.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody's kind of been on this gravy train. Plenty of momentum before COVID, and then COVID for the last 2.5 years has just escalated. That train has been cooking on all cylinders, and now it's effectively coming off the rails. And we are about to separate the men from the boys, or the women from the girls, if you will.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
Okay, so let me ask you about this, because this was one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on. So the last time I haven't been able to go to CG in person for a while, mostly because COVID happened or whatever. So I think the last time, or maybe a couple times ago, when I was at CG Live, you guys did this whole, it was literally like 3 days of presentation. And the theme of the presentations were, things are going really well. Everybody get ready for when they are not going to go well anymore.
And here we are.
And the talk was like, hey, might be time to take some money off the table. Or, hey, make sure you're building up a war chest, because, right now, everybody's happy. Sooner or later, things are going to turn around. And I remember sitting in the audience and being like, that's really smart. And then literally, I think it was like the next year, we went into COVID or whatever, and just everything has been crazy ever since. So I want to give you props for like having the foresight to be thinking about that. And I think the people that were there took a ton away from it. So let me ask you, because again, you talk to investors, probably more investors than anybody I've ever met, right? You are truly well connected and connected to really sophisticated people. So I'm curious, what is your narrative of what the last couple years have been about and what the next few years are going to be about? Like put this in context for people, because I think for the average investor, on the street doing yellow letters or whatever, trying to get deals, things have been, it's just been chaotic, almost nonstop for the last few years. So when you kind of back up, you take all that experience into account, what do you view that storyline as being about where we've been and where you think we're going to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think the long and short of it is we've been, from a narrative perspective, we've been emphasizing what you stated, is that the wind is at your back. You have been in the way of momentum. Mm-hmm. And that momentum has been fueled by uncanny one-time incidences, such as COVID or the lowest interest rates in history, or kind of one and the same, one caused the other, if you will. But so much of that was not necessarily because you were a great business owner. Mm-hmm. And so you're living in kind of this artificial environment. And regardless of the environment, we always share with our members, our job is not to predict the future. Our job is to prepare you for the future, right? Let that sit in for a minute. Our job is not to predict the future. Our job is only to prepare you for the future. And so our narrative has been, hey, the wind's at your back, run like the wind, right? But be intelligent, right? We start out every single meeting and express to people, we show this, and Dan, you've probably seen it 10 times. We show a house, and this is not meant in any way to sound insensitive, given we're cutting this right after a hurricane, but we show a house that's on the beach from a hurricane a few years ago up in the Florida Panhandle, and it's standing by itself, and everything else around it is vaporized.
Yeah.
We show that for the reason to explain to our community that the reason that house stands is because of how it was built before the storm. And so the sun is shining, we're on the beach, things are marvelous. But when the storm comes, for you to be ready, you've got to take chips off the table. You've got to understand that profit is not just a number that shows up on the bottom right-hand corner of your P&L. It must be extracted from the business, right? If you worry a little bit during good times, you won't have to worry a lot during bad times, right? Let that sit on you for a minute. If you worry a little bit during good times, you won't have to worry a lot during bad times. So what is worrying a little bit? Worrying, we always say, making money is a skill set, keeping it is a discipline. If you don't have both, it doesn't always turn out very good, right? And so a lot of entrepreneurs are good at making it, but the disciplines that you've got to put in place are, you got to have retained earnings for your business. So when things slow down like this, you make it. You've got to have retained earnings for your family. So when things slow down like this, you can make it. So there are disciplines that have to be put in place when times are good. So you don't have to worry when times are bad. So that's really the narrative that we've been driving for the last several years, right? Hey, things are great. Don't take all the credit for it. The wind is at your back. Make sure that you've got your pot out, your buckets out while it's raining, and make sure you save some water, from the rain. And so here we are.
Yeah.
Those mantras are in full effect right now. And so the new narrative, quite honestly, is, we're telling our folks in CG, get to a place of stability, right? A place of stability sometimes doesn't necessarily mean you don't bleed, right? And so an example of that might be, you're out mountain bike riding, you get flipped over the front end, you break your leg, you're an hour from a hospital. Your job is not to perform the surgery. Your job is to stop the bleeding.
Fair.
Right? You don't get to do surgery right there on the trail, right? We're going to do that later. We're just going to stop the bleeding. So especially those who are heavy into construction, or even if you're in a wholesale side of the business and you've got a big staff, or many of our members do both, right? They generate their own leads and they decide to wholesale, to rehab, to turnkey, to keep it in their portfolio, whatever it may be. But our message up to this point has been to, number one, you've got to stabilize, even if that means, I won't use names, but we have a gentleman in Salt Lake. I mean, the guy's a rock star. He's very consciously said, I've got a ton of projects that I priced 3 months ago. They're coming onto the market in a month.
Right.
The way I priced them or underwrote them 3 months ago is irrelevant today. If I want to get to stability, I've got to dump these properties. I got to take some losses. I'm probably going to lose $1.5 million. Now, he probably made $12 to $15 million over the last 4 or 5 years. And so if he's instituted those disciplines, you know what? I've got cash reserves. I can make smart decisions. I've got to stop the bleeding. I'm going to dump these properties. I'm going to take a haircut. I'm going to reassess the market when I'm on stable ground. All right. Now, that's on the rehab side. On a wholesale side, there's a couple of things there from the perspective of, number one, you've had order takers on your staff for the last couple of years, right? You get a deal. It didn't even really have to be a deal, right? You buy something at 90 cents on the dollar, you turn around and sell it for 98 cents on the dollar to a hedge fund, whatever. You didn't really have to have negotiations training, sales training. It was almost like you needed to buy. Right. That's all changing. Right now, over the next 12 months, he or she who has the best trained sales team who can negotiate is going to win. Right. The second thing that I would tell you there is people are adjusting their buy boxes. What they're willing to pay relative to ARV or market value has had to take a big change. And then on the other side is all of the efforts it was primarily all efforts on acquisitions with little to none on dispo, because it's like if you've got a steak, you hang the steak out, the wolves are going to come.
Right.
Well, now people are seeing things differently. They're knee-jerk reacting to interest rates. They're pulling back. And right now that steak looks like an old hamburger at McDonald's been under the heat lamp for like 6 hours.
Right.
And to sell that thing's going to take a little extra work.
Yeah.
And so on the dispo side, you were probably moving a lot of property to power players. And now you've got to go out and you've got to find, you're more so looking for HGTV buyers or folks who are in it for the long term to play. Hey, I know that long term, as long as I buy a property that cash flows, it's, in 10 years or 20 years, if I've got 20 of those or 30 of those, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter when I buy. So, but it's a different ballgame. Now, when you identify those buyers, which you may not have been targeting, now you're having to educate those buyers. You're having to provide a package to them, right? It's not just like, hey, I got a house at $52,000 or $152,000 or two. No, here, I've got a house for you. Here are 3 people that can bid on it, give you an estimate to fix it, right? Here's the best agent in that particular zip code that when you get it done, has the best track record for selling it, right? Yeah. And then here, here's who's 2 hard money lenders here locally that could provide you the capital. You're not selling a property anymore, you're selling a package.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff now, quite honestly, and it'll be done more efficiently, and there are new tools, but all of this is 2012 stuff that we're talking about, right? It's just cyclical. It all goes around in a circle. And we're back to a point in the circle that we looked at, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people in the game today, even though it's come full circle, they weren't necessarily in it when they had to drive their business this way. So, the thing that I would tell you is, as this market changes, I know a lot of people out there probably look at it, investing in a community or a mastermind as, a potential expense. The reality of it is it's an investment to be around people who are. What we do at every mastermind is we take the people in our group who already figured it all out and put them in front of the rest of our organization and tell them how to do it step by step, and actually not just what to do, but here are the SOPs. Here are the mind maps with how it's done. Here are the scripts here. So everybody's sharing everything. It's almost like an insurance policy to protect themselves from the downturn, right? So when the river runs shallow and smooth, you can walk across it yourself. When it runs deep and it's a swell with white caps, you lock arms with people and you say, you walk across together with me, right? Yeah. And so the narrative, that's kind of the narrative right now, but there is, right now, if you can hold through what we call the gap, right? And the gap is, doesn't matter what prices are in real estate. As long as there's a tradable bottom in place, it's irrelevant. Your job is to create a delta between what you can buy for and what you can sell for. Doesn't matter what pricing is, but until the disparity between what sellers think a home is worth and what an investor is willing to pay, until that gap closes and both sides come together, right? It's choppy.
Yeah.
If you can make it through the chop right now, you stand to be fiercely rewarded on the other side.
Yeah. I really like what you were just saying about it really is about negotiating the gap between public perception and what the market thinks, right? Or the sort of savvier investors in that market, right? That strikes me as really true and insightful, right? You still have people in the market today who go to sell their house who expect someone to walk in and give them a cash offer the day they put it on the MLS, right? Because they heard that their friends did that 6 months ago, and it's not quite waking up to that reality. So you said so many things that were really insightful that I really love.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.